up the pool of primary care physicians. Number two is increasing the reimbursements for primary care. You know, right now you've got a situation where if a primary care physician says to a patient, you know what, you need to lose some weight because you're at risk of diabetes, and I've got a good, you know, exercise program that makes sense, and here's a dietitian that you should talk to. Sometimes Medicare may not reimburse that consultation, but they'll reimburse the $30,000 foot amputation because after somebody gets the disease. Well, that doesn't make sense. So changing our reimbursement system to encourage preventive care and encourage what primary care physicians do is probably going to be the single most important thing that we can do to assure that you and those of you who have good primary care physicians continue to get that kind of care. Last point I'll make, and I just want to go back to this point that I made during my remarks. About a decade ago, I guess, and Barbara, correct me if I'm getting the timing wrong, but about a decade ago, Congress, not our Congress, but previous Congress, made the decision that the way we were going to actually cut Medicare, or cut the rising costs of Medicare, was to say to doctors and providers, we're going to cap you at a certain level, and if you don't, tough luck. And in theory it sounded good, but it wasn't very well thought through. And so what happened was each year costs for doctors went up and the reimbursements didn't. And eventually it got so bad that Congress then started saying, you know what, this isn't realistic. So each year they'd kind of do a patchwork fix on this thing. And the formula for reimbursing Medicare doctors would be adjusted, but it would only be adjusted for a year or adjusted for 2 years. But it wouldn't get adjusted permanently. And what's happened is over time it's built up so that now each year you end up having this emergency where unless Congress passes a bill right away, suddenly Medicare doctors are going to get a 21% cut in their reimbursements because all that healthcare inflation had built up over time. Well, we're now in this situation again. And we've got to fix this permanently. Now, in the meantime, temporarily, we've got to make sure that your doctor is getting reimbursed so that they can stay in business and keep their doors open. And my administration has worked very closely with doctors to try to see if we can get this fixed short term, but ultimately we're going to have to get it fixed long term. What we want is a system where doctors are reimbursed for the right things. We want them reimbursed for quality. We want them reimbursed for how good care you can get, you're giving patients. We don't want doctors just to be reimbursed for how many tests they do or how many procedures they do, because sometimes that may mean that they're not given the best care. We want quality, not quantity. So there are adjustments we need to make over the long term in how we reimburse doctors, but what we shouldn't do is have this, guillotine hanging over their heads every year where they're having to figure out, am I going to get reimbursed or is suddenly my income going to drop by 20%? Because what will happen is more and more people will say, I don't want to be a Medicare doctor. I don't want to be a primary care physician for somebody on Medicare because it's going to make my income unstable. That's something that we've got to fix. Okay?